Yeah, we're going straight on the story, folks. I had to take a nap. I had a bad headache, but I tried to recover from that. Last time I did a live show. I did a live show based on Owen James Hart. Last time I did, I ain't go live in a while for some reason. I'm gonna go live again before I'm gonna do three live shows based on Raymond Burr. You know, Notorious B.I.G. That was the legacy of him. That's the second part from taking off from last year. Uh, and the third one I'm gonna do. The third one is based on Brian Pillman. Brian Pillman. Yeah, I'm glad to go start off with this man, John Randolph Jack Webb. I'm gonna start off with him. Let me tell you about this man. This man was an actor, a TV producer, a director, and a screenwriter who was he's most famous for playing as Detective Joseph Friday in the Dragnet franchise in the 1960s. But I never know it came out. Well, that was happening from the 40s. Oh, that's came out in the 40s. Okay, my bad. Let me start over. John Randolph Webb. Yeah, everyone knows about this man's name's John Randolph Jack Webb. He's an actor, American actor, TV producer, director, and screenwriter who's most famous for his role as Detective Joseph Friday in the Dragnet franchise. Well, this franchise that he did is also, I don't know. He played the role as the character in that franchise, the Dragnet franchise, which that he created. He was also founder of a production company that he owned. He owned a production company. He used to own a production company. It's called Mark Seven Limited. Mark Seven Limited. Anybody remember that production company that he used to own and founded? But let me tell you about Webb. He started his career in the 1940s as a radio personality, starring in several radio shows and dramas, including Dragnet, which that he created in 1949. 1949, before shifting to acting in the 1950s, creating TV adaptations of Dragnet. That was television adaptations. That was of the Dragnet series. That was for NBC throughout the 1960s. Webb was working in both acting and TV production, creating uh, a series called Adam 12 in 1968. And in 1970, Webb had retired from the acting game because he was about to start focusing. Why this man is retiring? You want to know why? Jack Webb, Joseph, not Joseph Roddy. The character that's Jack Webb's shit. That's Jack Webb's playing the character. The Detective Friday character, that's his shit. I'm explaining about this shit here. Webb had retired from the acting to focus on producing and creating a 1972 series called Emergency. Webb had continued. Let me tell you about Webb. He continued to make TV series, and although many of them were less successful and short-lived, he wished to rekindle his prior successes, and he had plans to return to acting in a Dragnet revival. before his death, before it's right before he died. But John Randolph Webb, he had some production style. He had the production style. Yeah, style he had. Yeah, that's the was he had a production style that he had aimed. He aimed those for those significant levels, the significant levels of detail and accuracy. Many of his works focused on law enforcement and emergency services in the Los Angeles, California area, most prominently in the LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department, which he directly supported the production of the legendary Dragnet TV series and the Adam 12 series. A staunch conservative, Webb often used his works to voice his opinions on political and social issues evident in the speeches that he would empt into the Dragnet in the scripts of the Dragnet series. Let's go to his early life for a minute. So I'm gonna find out about this guy for a minute. Let's start off with him. Webb was born in Santa Monica, California on April the 2nd, 1920. He is the son of Samuel Chester Webb and Margaret Webb. He grew up in the Bunker Hill section of Los Angeles. His father, Samuel, has left home before Webb was born, and Webb had never knew him. Webb had never knew him. But in the late 90s, but between in 1927 through in 1931, Webb lived in the parish of Our Lady of Loretto Church and attended Our Lady of Loretto Elementary School in Echo Park, where he served as an altar boy. An altar boy. He then attended Belmont High School near downtown Los Angeles. Webb was elected student body president of his high school that he used to attend. He wrote to Belmont's student body in the 1938 edition of its yearbook, Campanile. That's the word, Campanile. You who showed me the magnificent warmth of friendship, which I know and you know I will carry with me forever. Look at the keys. You who showed me the magnificent warmth of friendship, which I know and you know I will carry with me forever. That's the keys. That's the keys. I forgot all about that shit. Let me recharge my phone. Well, I'm not fucking with Badu though. Seriously, get off my nuts, Badu. I'm doing a story on John Webb. Back off. Seriously, Badu. I'm doing a fucking story on John Webb. Fuck off. Let me do this. Let me go there. Uh, a young John Webb attended St. John's University of Minnesota. Oh, university. Oh, you meant University of Minnesota. That's where he. This is where Webb. This is where Webb had studied the art. That's what Webb was doing. This is where Webb had studied the art from. See, this is what happened when I go read this here, because I wasn't even in that time period see, the 1940s. My grandfather was in that time period where the World War II shit was happening in the 1940s, i.e., 1941, 1942, whatever. I think that year came from. During World War II, Webb had enlisted in the USAAC, the United States Army Air Corps, but he washed out of flight training. He later received a hardship discharge because he was the primary financial support for both his family members, his mother, Margaret, you know, who was already who already birthed him, and then the other person who he had financial support for, his grandmother. His grandmother. Webb was what Webb was the primary financial support for the two people that he loved, that he cared about the most, his mom and his grandma. Yeah, we're gonna go to his career. Let's go to the career for a minute and find out what he was doing in the West Coast, an acting career. Following his discharge, Webb moved to San Francisco, where a wartime shortage of announcers led to a temporary appointment to his own radio show on ABC's KGO Radio. The Jack Webb Show was a half-hour comedy that had a limited run on ABC Radio in 1946. Prior to that, he had a one-man program, One Out of Seven, in on KGO. What was this? On KGO, in which he dramatized a news story from the previous week. By 1949, he had abandoned comedy for drama and starred in Pat Novak for Hire, a radio show originating from KFRC about a man who worked as an unlicensed private detective. The program co-starred the late Raymond Burr. This man right here, Raymond Burr. I'm gonna do a live show based on him tomorrow. Pat Novak was notable for writing that imitated the hard-boiled style of such writers as Raymond Chandler. Raymond Chandler, that's the guy with the pipe in his with the lines such as "She drifted into the room," as it says. Let me rephrase. She drifted into the room like 98 pounds of warm smoke. Her voice was hot and sticky, like a furnace full of marshmallows. Marshmallows. Early in 1949, Webb served as the main antagonist for Alan Ladd's protagonist character Dan Holliday in The Better Man episode of the radio series Box 13, which aired on January the 2nd, 1949. Yeah, that was around when 1949 came in. That was January 2nd, 1949. This is after New Year's, when 1948 was done. Webb's radio shows included Johnny Madero, Pier 23, Jeff Regan, Investigator, Murder and Mr. Malone, Pete Kelly's Blues, and One Out of Seven. Webb provided all of the voices on One Out of Seven, often vigorously attacking racial prejudice. In 1950, Webb appeared in three films that would become cult classics in Sunset Boulevard. He is the fiance of William Holden's love interest, Nancy Olson. Nancy Olson. Yeah, that leaves out something. He played a war veteran in Marlon Brando's first feature, The Men, in the film Noir Dark City. He co-starred with Harry Morgan. Well, we miss him. We miss Harry Morgan. We damn sure miss Harry Morgan. This is before he was on the MASH TV series. His future partner on the second Dragnet series. Webb's most famous motion picture role was the combat hardened Marine Corps drill instructor at Paris Island in the 1957 film The D.I. with Don Dubbins as a Cal Marine private. Webb's hard-nosed approach to this role, to that of a drill instructor, Technical Sergeant James Moore, would be reflected in much of his later acting, but the DI was a box office failure. Webb was approached to play the role of Vernon Warmer. Was it? What did he play the character? Oh yeah, Vernon Warmer, the dean of Faber College, in the 1970s National Lampoon's Animal House film. But he refused it, saying the movie didn't make any damn sense. There's the key word. The movie didn't make any damn sense. That's what John Vernon ultimately played the role. I get that. Man. What you so why the hell he said what the hell he said that in 1978? By the movie didn't make any damn sense. Let's go to Dragnet and Stardom. Webb had a feature role as a crime lab technician in the 1948 film He Walked by the Night. I forgot. He Walked by Night. Based on the real life murder of a California highway patrolman by Irwin Walker. That's the name. That's the name. Irwin Walker. The film was produced in a semi-documentary style with the technical assistance provided by Detective Sergeant Marty Wynn of the Los Angeles Police Department. He Walked by Night's thinly veiled, fictionalized recounting of the 1946 Walker crime spree gave Webb the idea for Dragnet, a recurrent series based on real cases from LAPD police files featuring authentic depictions. That's what it's featuring of authentic depictions of the modern police detective, including methods, mannerisms, and technical language, with much assistance from Sergeant Marty Wynn and legendary LAPD Chief William H. Parker. That's William H. Parker the third. Dragnet premiered on NBC Radio in 1949 and ran till 1957. It it was also picked up as a television series by NBC, which aired episodes each season from 1952 to 1959. Webb played is Sergeant Joe Friday. In Barton Yarborough, co-starred is Sergeant Ben Romero. After Yarborough's death, Ben Alexander joined the cast. Yeah, Ben Alexander joined the cast. There's Webb and Morgan in 1968. There's Webb with Morgan in 1968. Uh, Webb was a stickler for attention detail, for attention to detail. What is it? Let me rephrase. John Randolph Jack Webb was a stickler for the attention to detail. He had believed that the viewers wanted realism and tried to give it to them. Webb had that tremendous respect for those in law enforcement. He often said in the interviews that he was angry about the ridiculous amount of abuse to which police were subjected by the press and the public. Webb was also impressed by the long hours, the low pay, and the high injury rate among police investigations of the day, particularly in the LAPD, which had by then acquired a notorious reputation for jettisoning officers who had become ill or injured in the line of duty. In Webb's book, The Badge, one of Erwin Walker's victims, LAPD detective, the LAPD detective Colin Forms was among those whose experiences were so noted. Announcing his vision of Dragnet, Webb said he intended to perform a service for the police by showing them as low-key working-class heroes. Dragnet moved away from earlier portrayals of the police in shows such as Jeff Reagan and Pat Novak, which have often shown them as brutal and even corrupt. Dragnet became a successful television show in 1952. Barton Yarborough died of a heart attack in 1951. In 1951, he died of a heart attack after filming 2 episodes. And Barney Phillips played as Sergeant Ed Jacobs, and Herbert Ellis, who played as Officer Frank Smith, temporarily stepped in as partners. Veteran radio and film actor Ben Alexander took over the role of a jovial, burly officer Frank Smith. Alexander was popular and remained a cast member until the show's cancellation in 1959. In 1954, a full-length feature film adaptation of the series was released, starring Webb, Alexander, and Richard Boone. This guy right here is no longer with us. Richard Boone. He was starred in films like starring TV shows like Have Gun Will Travel. The TV version of Dragnet began with this narration by George Fenneman. Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. Webb would intone, this is the city, Los Angeles, California. He would then make a historical and topical point, describe his duties, his partner and superior on the episode. The radio series had a similar opening, though Webb, as Friday, did not have a unique LA themed opening. Webb then set the plot by describing a typical day and then led into the story. It was Wednesday, March 19th. It was cool in Los Angeles. I was at headquarters working narcotics. At the end of the show, Fenneman repeated his opening narration, revised to read. The story you have just seen is true. The names were changed to protect the innocent. A second announcer, Hal Gibney, who's been a West Coast announcer for NBC for years, for more than 20 years, some more than 20 years or more. Yeah, he's been a West Coast announcer for NBC for all those years. Usually gave dates, and when specifically courtrooms where trials were held for the suspects who had been convicted of murder, bank robbery, okay, murder, bank robbery, uh, you know, all sorts of dirt crimes. I know what that happened when they got held for those indictments, announcing the trial verdicts. Let me rephrase. Announcing the trial verdicts after commercial breaks. Many suspects have shown. Let's see. Let me rephrase. Many suspects shown to have been found guilty at the end were also shown as having been confined to the California State Prison in San Quentin. Webb frequently recreated entire floors of buildings on sound stages, such as the police headquarters in Los Angeles City Hall and the floor of Los Angeles Herald Examiner. During Dragnet's early days, Webb continued to appear in movies, notably as Artie Green, the best friend of William Holden's character in the 1950 Billy Wilder film Sunset Boulevard. The character Green and was I forgot the character Green was an assistant director and fiance to script reader Betty Schaefer, played by Nancy Olson in Dark City. Webb played a vicious card sharp and Harry Morgan a punch drunk ex fighter. In contrast to the pair's straight arrow image in the later Dragnet, also in 1950, Webb appeared in The Men, Marlon Brando's debut film. Both actors played paraplegics undergoing rehabilitation at a veterans hospital in a subplot. Webb's character, a cynical intellectual, is fleeced of his life savings by a woman who feigns romantic interest. In 1951, Webb introduced a short-lived radio series, Pete Kelly's Blues. That's what it called, Pete Kelly's Blues, in an attempt to bring the music that he loved to a broader audience. That show became the basis for a 1955 film of the same name. In 1959, a TV version was made. Television version was completely made. Ceremoniously, neither was successful. Pete Kelly was a cornet player who had supplemented his income for playing in a nightclub band by working as a private investigator. I forgot. A private investigator, a PI. From September 1962 through May of 1963, Webb was the executive producer of G.E. True, an anthology series that ran 33 episodes, which each of which Webb acted as a host narrator for while also directing and acting in some episodes. At the beginning of June of 1963, it was reported that G.E. True would not continue until early 1963. That was February of 1963. Webb succeeded William T. Orr as a executive in charge of Warner Brothers Television. With Orr moving in to the motion picture of Warner Brothers, Webb had brought about was it wholesale changes to the ABC Warner Brothers detective series. Oh, 77 Sunset Strip. That's what he named it. 77 Sunset Strip. Retaining only, oh yeah, this guy, Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. That's what his name is. Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. Okay, I probably got his name right. In the role of Private Detective Stuart Bailey. The result was a borderline disaster. A borderline disaster. And the critics accused Webb of being out of touch with the younger generation of the viewers that watched it. The same year, Webb sold Temple Houston to NBC. To NBC, the show starring Jeffrey Hunter. This is Jeffrey Hunter. Followed the exploits of Temple Leah Houston, a circuit riding lawyer and the youngest son of Sam Houston. Despite Webb and Hunter's high profiles, however, it ended after its 26-week run. In a 1965 interview with the Milwaukee Journal, that's in Wisconsin, Hunter described the situation. In the first place, we had no time to prepare for the series. I was noted, not noted, notified. I was notified on July 17th to be ready to start August 7th for an October air date. For an October air date. When we reached the screen, we did not have a single segment. We did not have a single segment ready. A segment. We did not have it ready. It was done so fast that the writers never got a chance to know what it was all about. We all wanted to follow the line that was indicated by the plot film, which we thought would make a charming series. NBC, however, favored making it serious. Yeah, Webb's role, the role that Webb had portrayed with Warner, it ended in December of 1963. Goodbye to Dragnet. Shortly after leaving his position at Warner Brothers, let me read it again. Shortly after leaving his position at Warner Brothers, Webb teamed with Universal Television to begin work on a new Dragnet series, a pilot television film based on the Harvey Gladman serial killings. Was produced in 1966. That was in the 1960s. I think it was 1966 back in those days. Oh yeah, it was for NBC. With Webb's Sergeant Joe Friday joined by Harry Morgan as Officer Bill Gannon. Oh, I, I was almost reaching for Cannon. I'm sorry, I was reaching for Cannon. Oh yeah, with Webb's Sergeant. So that's weird. With Webb's Sergeant Joe Friday joined by Harry Morgan as Officer Bill Gannon. Webb had tried to get Ben Alexander to reprise his role as Frank Smith, but Alexander would not leave the ABC series The Felony Squad. He's stuck. Ben Alexander is stuck with the ABC series The Felony Squad. This one, The Felony Squad. He couldn't even leave the fucking show. The new Dragnet premiered as a mid-season replacement series on January 12th, 1967, and aired until April the 16th, 1970, to distinguish it from the original series alone. The year of production was added to the title, Dragnet 1967, and Dragnet 1968, etc. The revival emphasized crime prevention and outreach to the public. Its attempts to address the contemporary youth drug culture. Well, I'm about to recover from my headache. Such as the revival's first episode, The LSD Story, guest starring Michael Burns as Benjamin John Boy Carver. Voted the 85th best TV episode of all time by TV Guide and TV Land, have led certain episodes on the topic to achieve cult status due to their strained attempts to be quote unquote with it. such as Joe Friday grilling Blue Boy by asking him, "You're pretty high and far out, aren't you? What kind of kick are you on, son?" That's what Jack Webb's character telling telling Michael Burns' character, Benjamin Carver. "You're pretty high and far out, aren't you? What kind of kick are you on, son?" That's what he said. That's what John Randolph Jack Webb told uh Michael Burns. That leaves a question mark. Jesus fucking Christ. Shit. You can't fucking tell me that by a mile, man. Donald Dubbins, uh who had acted alongside Webb in the DI in the 1950s. In 1957, he was featured in the Dragnet 1967 episode The Big Explosion, and was another featured actor in Mark 7 limited programs beginning in the 1960s. Other Webb affiliated actors featured in the revived series many times in the different roles were Virginia Gregg, Peggy Webber, Clark Howard, Owen Sewell, Bobby Troop, Tim Donnelly, and Marco Lopez. In 1968, Webb and his production partner R.A. Senator launched Adam 12 on NBC, a spin-off of Dragnet. Adam 12 starred Martin Milner and Kent McCord as a pair of LAPD officers, and followed their escapades while on patrol, running until 1975, uh, for a total of 7 seasons. Adam 12 was Webb's second longest running TV series, was television series as foremost, with the 8 seasons recorded by the original Dragnet being the longest. Also in that year, also in that year, Webb and Johnny Carson performed a sketch on The Tonight Show that has since become known as the Copper Clapper Caper sketch. Webb, in character as Joe Friday, was working on the case of a robbery at a school bell factory. At a school bell factory. That's what we call it. It was a factory name there. I think it was named like. I'm thinking, what is a school bell factory robbery? So Johnny Carson, rest in peace, played the owner of the factory and victim of the theft, which have consisted of each bell being relieved of its clapper, the device that makes the bell ring. The sketch's dialogue consisted of Webb and Carson discussing the situation in a deadpan style and using some alliteration and tongue twisters to describe the incident. Each word having either a C or a CL sound at the beginning. Both Webb and Carson tried desperately not to lose the composure that they have, but both did near the end of the sketch. We're going to the 70s and 80s, but in 1970, Webb decided to bring an end to the legendary Dragnet and cease acting to focus on expanding Mark Seven's limited production profile in 1971. Webb entered the world of district attorneys and federal government work with the 2 series, the first called DA, starring Robert Conrad, and Harry Morgan as a pair of Los Angeles County Assistant District Attorneys. That's right, ADAs. That means for Assistant District Attorneys. With Conrad playing a junior assistant district attorney, and Morgan his superior, the second O'Hara United States Treasury was a co-production of Webb and David Jansen, the former star of The Fugitive and future star of Harry O. For CBS, a rare non-NBC Mark 7 effort, and featured Jansen as a Nebraska county sheriff turned United States Treasury Department agent. Neither series lasted very long. The DA Webb's last 30-minute series was canceled after 15 episodes, and O'Hara ended after 22 of them. Later in the 1971-1972 season, Webb and Senator launched Emergency. They launched this series called Emergency, which have focused on the fictional Station 51 rescue squad of the LA County Fire Department and its work in coordination with the emergency department staff of the fictional Rampart General Hospital. LA Co-EPD's paramedic program was among the first paramedic services in the United States. Webb cast his ex-wife Julie London, as well as her second husband and Dragnet ensemble player Bobby Troop, as head nurse Dixie McCall and Dr. Joe Early, respectively, with Randolph Mantooth, Kevin Tive, playing paramedics John Gage and Roy DeSoto, and Robert Fuller, playing Dr. Kelly Brackett, Rampart's chief of emergency medicine. Emergency ran as part of NBC's Saturday night lineup for 6 entire seasons, and it was a hugely popular series, sometimes winning its time slot against CBS's popular Saturday night comedy block, which included All in the Family, that's been out from 1971 to 1979. The series came to an end in 1977, but it spawned a series of telefilms that ran until 1979. Webb's company and Universal also contacted with animator Fred Calvert to produce a spin-off Saturday morning cartoon show for NBC titled Emergency Plus 4, which ran for like 3 seasons, the last in the reruns, and featured the paramedics Gage and DeSoto, assisted by the 4 youngsters and their 3 pets. Emergency was Webb's last unstable. Was it? Let me explain. Let me rephrase again. Emergency was Webb's last sustained success. Of the remaining series, his company produced the only 2 that lasted longer than one season were Heck Ramsey, a 2-season component of the NBC mystery movie Will series that featured the former Have Gun Will Travel star Richard Boone. Richard Boone as forensic scientist, a pioneering forensic scientist in the Old West, and Project UFO, an anthology based on the investigations into the UFOs as compiled as Project Blue Book, that also ran 2 seasons beginning in the beginning of the year of 1978. Uh, Despite his string of short-lived series in the late 1970s, Webb still kept trying to recapture his previous his previous success and decided to bring Dragnet back to television for a third series in 1983. Five scripts, five scripts. Let me tell you about these scripts. The five scripts had been produced, and Kent McCord, one of the stars of Adam 12, was cast as Joe Friday's new partner. But this is long before Jack Webb died, and on December 23rd, 1982. In 1987, actors Dan Aykroyd and yeah, actors Daniel Aykroyd and Thomas Hanks starred in a movie, in a parody and a homage to the late John Randolph Jack Webb, titled Dragnet. Dragnet, along with Harry Morgan, who reprised his role from the television series as Bill Gannon, who had by now become a captain of detectives. The comedy film was written and directed by Thomas Frank Mankiewicz, who had been an American screenwriter, director, and a producer of motion pictures and TV. In his directorial debut, Aykroyd played the role that John Randolph Jack Webb, who's rest in peace since 1982, uh, as the detective Joe Friday, described as the namesake nephew of the original series lead, while Hanks co-starred as Detective Officer Pep Strebeck. That name is. Oh, I forgot about that. I watched that movie, man. I might have to watch that movie again. I might have to watch that movie if I had to find it on YouTube. Let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about Thomas Hanks. Tom Hanks played the character. He co-starred as Detective Officer Detective Officer Pep Strebeck, Friday's new smart alecky and streetwise partner. Let me go to Webb's personal life, and we'll go ahead and push into. We go to Webb's personal life, and we go push it in. His personal life was better defined by his love of jazz than his interest in police work. He had a collection of more than 6,000 jazz recordings. Whoa, he had all that shit? Jazz recordings? Man, goddamn. This motherfucker got all the 6,000 jazz recordings before he had passed away. Webb's own recordings have reached cult status, including his deadpan delivery of try a little tenderness. His lifelong interest in the cornet allowed him to move easily into jazz culture, where he met singer and actress, oh, that's her name, Julie London. They married in 1947 and had two daughters, Stacy and Lisa. They divorced in 1954. He was married three more times after that, to Dorothy Town. Yeah, a lady named Dorothy Town, for those years, beginning in 1955, to a former USA winner named and that name is Jackie Lahorie. That's what check the name. Jacqueline Lahorie. For those years, for the beginning in 1958, and a longtime associate of his, Opal Wright, for the last for the last couple of years of his life. Stacy Webb authorized and collaborated on a book. Just the facts, ma'am. That's what she collaborates on the book. That's what it called. Like, just the facts, ma'am. That words came from Webb. Okay. Okay, my phone's up to 90%. Okay. Well, I'm on live. The authorized biography of Jack Webb, creator of Dragnet, Adam 12, and Emergency, which of Daniel Moyer and Eugene Alvarez were the primary authors. It was published in 1999. Stacy did not live to see the publication of the book, and having been killed in a collision with a California Highway Patrol vehicle. That was for like last couple years earlier. That's like a couple years earlier. Now I'm looking at the picture of the grave of John Randolph Jack Webb. There's his name. There's his date of death, his date of birth, and his date of death. You see the grave of Jack Webb at Forest Lawn Memorial Park Cemetery in the Hollywood Hills. It's probably the same. It's probably the same cemetery that Eazy-E was buried in. Eric Wright, the gangster rapper, who brought up sex, crime, and all the other shit into the music. So that was like in 1995. And then this is after Jack Webb was laid to rest in 1982. Both of these guys were laid to rest in 1982 and 1995. Jack Webb and Eazy-E. Let's go to the death. And the news got real deeper when it became tragic. Let me explain this shit. I'll explain shit to you. I was in diapers when when John Randolph Webb, aka Jack Webb, was deceased at the period. I think he died of a heart attack. A lot of my family members, they already went through that shit. Brian Pillman too. John Randolph Jack Webb died of an apparent heart attack in the early morning hours of December 23rd, 1982, at the age of 62. He is interred at Sheltering Hills Plot, 1999, Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills Cemetery in Los Angeles, and was given a funeral with full Los Angeles police honors on Webb's death. Former LAPD Police Chief Daryl Gates announced that the badge number 714, which was used by Joe Friday in Dragnet, would be retired. Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley ordered all flags lowered to half staff in Webb's honor for a day, and Webb was buried with a replica LAPD badge bearing the rank of sergeant and the number And the number is 714. There's Tom Bradley. There's Tom Bradley. Yeah, he used to be a mayor. He used to be a mayor back in the 70s. But but this guy used to be a politician and a cop. You know what I mean? Let's go to Tom Bradley. Yeah, this man's been deceased since 1998. He will be missed too. Let's go to the legacy of let's go to Webb's legacy. Webb has two stars in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. One for radio at 7040 Hollywood Boulevard, and the other for television at 6728 Hollywood Boulevard. In 1992, Webb was posthumously inducted into the Television Hall of Fame. There's filmographies and stuff that he have done, discographies that he have done, you know. All right, that's it for the story of uh of Jack Webb. I'm gonna have to go find a way to do some things for a minute, but let me go go ahead and memorialize this man because I ain't never get a chance to do it. I ain't get a chance to go do it. All right. Oh, I know what to do now. I know just the thing to do now. I know just the thing to do. Hold on. I know just the thing to do now. Yep. Hell yeah. All right. This story. This is the story of John Randolph Jack Webb. Uh, this live show is all dedicated into the memory of John Randolph Jack Webb, born in April 2nd, 1920. I forgot. Born in April 2nd, 1920, and died on December 23rd, 1982. Rest in peace, Jack.